Hey guys, what's up? It is the 8-year anniversary. It's been 8 years since I've been doing the weekly show. I've been doing YouTube videos for longer than that. But 8 years at the weekly show, never missed a show. I know that I'm probably going to go to at least 10 years. I don't know if I'm going to change the format or do something different. But for the 8-year kind of anniversary, I didn't do a prize. But I was thinking what we do is anyone that's not a patron or a member or something on YouTube, because I know a lot of people, just you're not paying for something like this, and it's fine. It's completely fine. Or you just don't have money, or you don't have time, or you don't care. Cool. But a lot of people always suggest, why don't you review this one? Why don't you review that? So if you want to leave a comment, and it'll be up until next week or whatever open, and just pick a movie that I haven't covered in the 8 years that I've been doing this weekly show, I'll drop it in the giant bag that is constantly getting bigger. I know, and if the patrons or anybody's more upset about that, they can have another one to throw in the bag as well, and I'll draw it, and I'll review it. Within reason, I mean, don't pick something like the 10-hour movie of, down in New York City of them filming a building, or, just some Guso milk or some shit like that, because I'm not going to cover it. But, yeah, I think that'll be fun to do. Now, in the 8 years I've been doing this show, I've discovered a lot of things. I've had a lot of people on the show that was great, and I've watched my first Orloff movie in those 8 years. I watched my first Santo movie. I watched my first Mabuza movie. So there's a lot of things that I've never seen before. I watched a lot of classics that I skipped. Discovered a lot of underground movies that I loved from just kind of low budget stuff that really didn't get much recognition through the early 80s so far. A lot of Indonesian stuff. Just weird films that don't get a lot of play in the United States. Never had releases here. And I also have, had more appreciation for certain directors I like Tobe Hooper or Wes Craven. I've grown to like even more than I did. And, Carpenter, I love Carpenter even more. So I just grew a bigger appreciation for the people that I've always enjoyed. Started giving Bava more time and stuff. I've always liked his movies, but you just don't have as much time. And Fulci and Argento and Romero and Cronenberg, they just get better. They get better with age. They get better with time, their movies and everything like that. So over the 8 years, I've kind of found a lot of new films that I've loved, discovered a lot of new films, opened a lot of doors, and see a lot more doors opening or on the horizon. When you open doors, you see more doors of films and different subgenres and things like that. But I've kept the love for my other stuff as well. So I appreciate you guys hanging around for 8 years, or maybe you're new to the channel. There's tons of people that comment on the regular or have been here for a long time or have for a couple years and disappeared. I hope you're doing well. I hope everything's great. But let's hop into the reviews because I'm not one to talk too much in the opening of the show. But this is going to be one from Seijan Suzuki. A Tale of Sorrow and Sadness, and it most certainly is. And don't be put off by the golf club here on the front. I know is this a golf movie? It is and it isn't. 1977, this was his movie that Seijan Suzuki got blacklisted for making movies. He kind of had gotten in trouble with his films and things like that, a lot of art films. He became kind of a counterculture figure after all this kind of stuff. Sam Deegan does a commentary on here, which is great, talking about his life and his career and going into all those details about his life. But this one, A Tale of Sorrow and Sadness, is a pretty interesting film because Seijan Suzuki had come from advertising when he was blacklisted for those 10 years, and this is his comeback film. And you think that you'd be a little bit more safe. Not exactly. He's not coming in here safe. He's coming in here with the same old kind of weird kind of energy. He's done dozens of films. I don't know which most people would be familiar with. I covered a box set on here not too long, probably like 5 years ago, and a couple of his art films through the early 80s that are considered kind of horror adjacent that were really good. But I've probably seen maybe 15 of his films. This is one of the better ones, and I don't think he makes bad films, but this is interesting. So in Japan, they have kind of the culture of taking a character. They do it in Korea too with the J-pop and K-pop kind of stuff, where they kind of groom somebody and put them forward to be this idol to make a lot of money. So basically, this kind of golf kind of industry, I don't really know exactly what firm they're from. They basically want to find somebody to put forefront in the advertising, have their own TV show, become a golf champion. So they pick this decent golfer. She's not perfect, and they start to train her immensely. She has kind of, I guess you'd say, a manager / lover that is just kind of a loose cannon. He's an alcoholic. He's dangerous. He's not really exactly a likable kind of guy, but he's getting her good deals. But he's benefiting off this kind of almost immediately. But it also talks a lot about fame. and that kind of stuff, like a perfect blue, not necessarily that extreme, but it does have that kind of weird kind of pressure and fame and stuff like that. So in the neighborhood, she's kind of looked down on because they just don't really like her, and they kind of always an outsider. She's rich, but one woman sees her on television and takes a liking to her and becomes obsessed with her and basically wants to be her friends. You get a lot of insight on her life and everything like that with her husband, who's a classic character actor in a slew of Japanese films that I've covered on here. He usually plays like a menacing character, and he kind of plays a kind of a aloof loser, but also a dark side to him as well. So what happens is, in a series of misfortunes, this kind of obsessed fan gets the upper hand and starts to control every detail of life. So this poor woman is kind of being controlled throughout the entire film by one person or the other. And she has a little brother that she's taking care of, and things kind of go to a climax that's pretty dark, pretty twisted. But it's definitely a satire on advertising and the pressure and the idols and all these kind of things like that. But it doesn't ever seem completely ridiculous. It all seems grounded to me. I guess that society is so wild sometimes that you just obviously buy this stuff for reality. But as far as the special features are concerned, the commentary by Sam Deegan is excellent. Talks about Seijan Suzuki's life before, after, how he was looked upon after this movie and before this movie, and his big kind of controversy where he basically sued one of the companies for firing him, all this kind of stuff like that. There's a new interview with editor Yukai, and limited edition booklet featuring new and archival writings. So this is a great film. Looks great, sounds great. Never had heard much about it, and I know people are probably thinking, oh, it's just going to be a kind of weird off-kilter drama. It definitely feels like a really good art film, but with kind of a dark, dramatic side, and it's definitely adjacent to, like, horror fans I think will appreciate this due to the obsession and the ending and the darkness. I really like this film. Great film. Also reminded me a bit of The Big Knife, the Robert Aldrich movie with Jack Palance. If you guys have ever seen that one, has some similarities to that. The pressure of being that person in the spotlight and maybe having some demons to hide, and skeletons in the closet, more appropriate than demons here. But yeah, A Tale of Sorrow and Sadness, great stuff. Highly recommended. Okay, we're going to hop into the second film in the Hardboiled 3 pulp thrillers by Alain Corneau. And the second one here is Serie Noire. And I think Serie Noire is probably the most popular of the three, the title that I think probably has the most cult recognition. This was made in 1979. And a lot of it is surrounded by the source material. It was based by Jim Thompson, who wrote stuff like The Getaway, which was adapted, of course, into a couple movies, one from 72 and 94. Great movie, although they changed the ending to the book. If you hear anything about Jim Thompson's book, they're really dark and really twisted and just strange. And this is also based off his work here, Serie Noire. But, so, the commentary and all these kind of special features on here made me privy to this very interesting fact that at the time that these books were being written, there was kind of a shortage on paper. So they released all these kind of pulpy noir books by Jim Thompson and other people in these truncated versions, and they became popular in France at the time, translated versions. So he kind of had a cult name behind him. So stuff like he wrote The Killer Inside Me, which is adapted a couple times, one early one by Stacy Keach, and of course The Getaway, like I mentioned, in this one here. And another one that was made in France, I can't think of its name, but this film also, besides the writers, is also the controversy and the infamy because the lead actor, Patrick Dewar, I believe it is, and it also has Mary, how do you say this, Treitinot, who is John Louis Treitinot's daughter, in a very young role here. And this has kind of elements of something like Taxi Driver. I think a lot of people would see that kind of thing in here. This is a dark film, definitely psychological, and they mentioned that Jim Thompson kind of made these characters that were weak and pathetic, but also smart. So this is very much this character here, and I'm not familiar with this actor, but it was one of my favorite performances I've seen in a long time. Very unsettling. He is basically a door-to-door salesman, and he's just not very good at his job. He has a wife at home, and they have turmoil, of course. And in the very beginning, you see him just kind of moving around, being hyperactive, which I can relate to, just talking to yourself and doing weird things like that when no one's looking. It's very much in that kind of like neurotic, kind of eccentric character. And he's like throwing these punches and just weird dancing and stuff. And you kind of get who this character is right off the bat, kind of in a weird kind of, way here. When they talked about kind of casting these movies at one point in productions, these Jim Thompson movies, they kept bringing up names like Warren Oates and things like that. And I'm like, seeing that, I'm like, that would be perfect. Because if you ever see Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia or, Dillinger or Hired Hand, these kind of awkward, kind of strange characters that Warren Oates plays that just brings to life. This guy's much more eccentric than that, I think. Even Private Property with Warren Oates is a really good one that kind of showcases his kind of weird vulnerability, but also kind of dangerous mentality in his characters. That's why he's so appealing, I think, to a lot of fans of film. And this guy has a different kind of element going, and he's fantastic. So what happens is one day he's going door-to-door salesman, and he's selling these things, and this old woman offers his niece to him. She's like 15 years old for sexual basically stuff, to get like a dress or a petticoat or something. He goes in and he kind of at first is not really sure. He rejects her. And this starts kind of a relationship between these two, and he becomes kind of obsessed with her. He wants to rescue her. And there's a couple other kind of weird characters wandering around, this Greek guy that he kind of befriends only to use in kind of a really fucked up plot. And before long, it spirals out of control, as these things always do, and it gets really dark, and his interactions with people are just bizarre, and you never know where it's exactly going to go. A lot of it plays, I think, for realism, where you're like, oh, in a movie, he would have just shot this guy, or ran out and done this, or got shot, and it's just like, it's playing to like these kind of weird moments, especially when he has this confrontation with his boss at the end, and he's like, I don't want to spoil anything, but it's so good when he's like, if you can hit me, if you'd like, I understand. That whole thing in there is just like, man, this is so weird, but I kind of get where this is going. And the violence when it's there is just very well done. And that's not always, I'm going to sound really weird and demented when I say this, but the action's good too. But these are more like small, like kind of personal, just violent burst of that. And the French are really good at that. But I've seen a lot of French exploitation movies. This is not that, where the action is really crummy and bottom of the barrel kind of exploitation cinema is from France at sometimes. Just really bad stuff when it comes to their action stuff, and this is not that. This is really well done. Obviously, Alain Corneau had a good eye for action and setting up a scene and all that kind of stuff, and framing as his first film does as well. But I was just really impressed with this performance. I don't know if this is a movie that I watched several times, but it's another movie that I would want to show. And I don't mean that as a negative. I mean, it's pretty dark. It's depressing. I would want to show other people this movie and say, man, check this out. And I would get pleasure off watching them be depressed, and it's kind of like, that's really crazy. And I think the more you watch something like this, I think the more powerful and poignant it becomes. But great movie, great performances by the two leads in here. Everybody, in fact, is great. His wife is also fantastic in here. There's a bunch of features on this disc. I don't want to lose out on any. There's interviews with, there's an hour, 50-minute documentary about, this film, made from 2013, which I think is the original DVD release of this movie, possibly in France. I don't know if it has stateside release, but Studio Canal movie here. So it's great seeing all the Studio Canal stuff get put out by a bunch of companies. I love seeing that because Studio Canal has a great catalog. This great interview with the director's wife, eventually, who was once married to Jean-Louis Tregonot. Is it Trent T. Knott? I know somebody went through this whole thing with me, and I had it down, but then I forget it. And I've seen this guy in dozens of movies. He's a really popular French actor, very good, very intense. But there's a great 50-minute interview, and I don't think there is a commentary on this one. All the special features are not listed, which is unfortunate here. I know there's a commentary on the first film. I believe there is not a commentary on the second film. But there is a lot of stuff about Jim Thompson talking about his work and things like that, and how it's been adapted and how it's interesting. And I love that kind of stuff. Overall, I think Police Python 357 is great. I think Serie Noire is even better. I think I'm going to eventually track down this book by Jim Thompson and read it. I think that I would enjoy it quite a bit. Okay, the next one here is from 88 Films, and this is Yakuza Wives, made in 1986, and I guess Toei was kind of losing interest, or the fans were losing interest in the Yakuza film, so they kind of tried to spice it up and do something a little bit different, and this is an interesting movie. It opens up, and you have a lot of these, wives throwing this, big party. These are the wives of all the Yakuza that are in prison. You kind of see a scene like that in Goodfellas when they're talking, or the guys in prison, and, their wives and stuff like that, the big wives chatting and stuff like that. I don't think that scene's directly correlated to them being in prison, but you get the idea where we have the mobsters kind of wives, and all these wives, husbands or Yakuza are in jail. So they kind of get together once a month or something like that and have these giant parties, and they kind of run the husband's operation to a certain extent when their husbands are behind bars. So we have a focus on these kind of two sisters, one who's kind of running her husband's branch of the Yakuza, she's kind of higher up, and her younger sister, who is kind of destined, she's supposed to be married off to somebody, the family, families to make things right, all these kind of thing like that, very old school kind of stuff like that. But she ends up being raped by this kind of mad dog Yakuza young guy trying out to make a name for himself, and he's just a fucking moron. And they fall in love, like all these kind of fucked up movies like that, right? The rape scene, and she ends up falling for this guy, and they start a relationship, but he's on the wrong side after this kind of split and this turmoil where people are doing all these bureaucratic politics behind the scenes with the Yakuza, who's going to get put in leads and stuff, and every time somebody's put in charge, they're killed. And there's a funny joke where one of the Yakuza women says, if my husband was still in jail, he'd be alive. So basically, you're like, it's not much safer out here. It's actually dangerous out here. But the main kind of idea is the turmoil between these sisters that kind of accumulate, kind of climaxes in a really wild fight. But there's some dark imagery, some twisted imagery, and it's definitely nihilistic towards the end of the film, which I enjoyed. But the special features on here kind of goes into this whole idea of what this director's MO kind of was. And it's funny, he made dozens of movies, and this is actually the first one I've seen by him. Haido Gosha, Samurai Wolf 1 and 2, and Violent Streets. I think I have all those films. I have not had a chance to watch it. But the special features, doesn't list introduction by Mark Schilling, exclusive interview with tattoo artist Seiju Mori. And there's more on here too. The introduction must be Mark Schilling, but he goes into depth. Remember being much longer than an introduction, but he kind of goes into depth about this director's MO, mixing the violence with the kind of sexual stuff. And there's a really kind of, I guess you'd say, iconic image towards the end of the film that kind of stuck out to me when we have one of our characters kind of resting while he's dying on, something like on naked women. And you're like, oh, that's just like kind of like, it's a weird kind of like beauty, like death, kind of sexual mixture of everything like that. But overall, it's good. There's a lot of characters. There's some decent action. There's a lot of politics. It keeps you invested. Some of the best scenes, I think, are just of the Yakuza wives kind of meeting up and hanging out. I thought that was pretty cool stuff. And the lead in here is great. I can't remember her name, but we also see a couple familiar character actors. Japan only has so many kind of actors that will do all these kind of crazy Yakuza movies, and they're pretty much in all of them, But a lot of these people are, under contract from the company, so they just do what they're told, right? But pretty good movie, Yakuza Wives by the 88 Films. All right, we're going to start another box set, and this is V Cinema Essentials, Bullets and Betrayal. Now, V Cinema, as explained on the first special feature here, there's a lot of direct-to-video Japanese movies in like kind of the mid 80s and stuff like that, where you start getting like the guinea pig movies and some of the other ones like Gozu, and they're like direct-to-video kind of horror films that I was familiar with. But V Cinema is kind of its own category. Takashi Miike kind of made a name for himself in the V Cinema. So we're going to start with the two first in this set. There's a bunch of them in here, as you can tell. But the first one here is Crime Hunter, Bullets of Rage. This is considered kind of, I think, the first V Cinema from Toei, which the line was ripped off later on by a bunch of smaller companies trying to, cash in on the success of V Cinema, movies made direct for the VHS market. And Japan was kind of ahead of the curve on the VHS market, of course, and whatnot. But Crime Hunter, this one was really great. 89. And this is a directorial debut. It's 58 minutes long. It never stops. The action is great. And the director was basically saying in an interview, before this film in Japan, people didn't really give you sound with shell casings. You didn't hear shell casing sounds where they fall on the ground and things like that. And then by my movie, I did that. He said Takashi Kitano, basically said he did that, but he's like, that's not really true. I don't think so. He's like, whatnot. But the plot follows two cops bringing in this badass kind of guy who stole $5 million from a church. And he's on the run. He's being arrested. And while he's being driven in, a group of masked kind of criminals start shooting at the police officers. One of the cops is killed brutally. The other one you think's dead, but he pulls through. The one guy escapes. He comes out and he realizes that the gang that killed his partner is not related. They were after the guy as well, the criminal. But the nun joins him and tries to track down the guy who stole the money from the church. So they unlikely duo pair up, and they're really weird. And they go into the underground and have a bunch of shootouts, underground criminal organizations, and try to figure out where this bad guy is to lead to the other bad guys. There's a great shootout in kind of like a junkyard place. It's cut really fast, and while you watch the special features of the director, you get like, oh, well, maybe some pieces are missing. Maybe he wasn't really happy with how it turned out, but the way it's edited, you just kind of think it's kind of the flow, kind of the style that they're going for. But there's tons of squibs, there's tons of action, there's tons tons of blood. It never, like I said, never stops. And we have an unlikely team up of people. It's not, I wouldn't call it heroic bloodshed because that's a Hong Kong thing, but we get some of the heroic bloodshed kind of style stuff going on towards the end of the movie. Great movie. Good bad guys. Not overly sophisticated, but you don't need to be. That's one thing, is people feel like if it's not sophisticated enough, it's not good enough for them, or something like that. That if they shit on something that's well done but not sophisticated, it somehow makes their taste and palate more interesting or intelligent. But that's fucking horseshit. But Crime Hunter, Bullets of Rage is excellent. There's an interview with the director on here as well, and we have and newly filmed introductions to both films by Japanese film critic Masaku Tayanoka, and Loose Cannon, a newly filmed interview with Crime Hunter, Bullets of director Shundo Okawa. Good stuff. Really enjoyed this one. Very entertaining. Okay, the next one in this set is Neo Chinpira, Zoom Goes the Bullet, if you guys can see it back there. Stuff falling out and everything like that. But yeah, this one I think was made in 1991. And this one starred, the lead actor here would go on to be in Pulse and a bunch of other movies. He kind of a big star after this. And this is definitely a different pace from our first film in the set. This is kind of a romantic comedy Yakuza film. And it's really bizarre. So our lead character here is, he's kind of a low-level Yakuza. He's in a gang, and he's trying to impress his boss. There's a couple other goons. He's always surrounded by goons. In fact, one kind of big, like, thuggish guy who's kind of a character actor you'd recognize. But his uncle, this young guy's uncle, is somebody of note in the Yakuza gang, and he's a kind of a interesting character actor that always pops up in these movies, but he's funny, and he's got sunglasses and punches real hard and has a mustache, and he's always popping up in the background, trying to kind of steer him in the right direction. But one day, while he's driving the boss's car, he kind of finds this runaway that steals it, and they start this crazy lure love affair. I don't even know if it's an affair, just basically this relationship where they're constantly having sex, and a huge chunk of this movie just turns to those two having sex. She's always nude, and he kind of gets his frustrations out by having sex. And what happens is, him and two other guys are basically told by the boss that they need to kill somebody that, you know, whacked the wrong guy. So they're basically horrified. And it's kind of in a funny, realistic way, because in a lot of the Yakuza movies, like Kinju Fukusaka movie or something, they'd be portrayed as like badasses, all full of like, not even honor, obviously not badass without honor and humanity, but they have some like grit, some toughness. They'll gladly kill somebody. They're not afraid. But here, these three guys realize that they're going to do a lot of time if they do this crime. And the two older gentlemen, the whole huge chunk of them kind of flaking out or figuring out ways to get out of it. And our lead character having this gun that the bullets keep dwindling because his girlfriend and a neighborhood kid keep shooting them. It's absolutely ridiculous and silly. The only problem with this movie is that stuff's really great, but towards the end of the film, the final act becomes incredibly repetitive, where it's like, oh, I don't want to do this, let's have sex. I don't want to do this, let's have sex. It became more like a Nikatsu erotic film than a Nikatsu erotic film. It had less story at that point, but it's also kind of about that dread, that, you know, impending doom that you're going to have to carry out this, and it leaves it on kind of an I don't want to even say open kind of note thing deal at the end, but interesting enough. Good lead performances from the two in here. It's got a couple decent laughs, but this one I actually enjoyed less than our first one. Crime Hunter is totally my jam. This one I think is a little bit more nuanced and wacky, and maybe takes a little bit more adjusting to get used to, but I would recommend Crime Hunter. This one I think is worth watching just because it's so bizarre, but not a favorite of mine, although it was incredibly popular in the V Cinema category. I'm at the library. And then we also have, zooming out, a newly filmed interview with Neo Chinpira, Zoom Goes the Bullet writer director Bami Takahashi, Crime Hunter and the Dawn of V Cinema, brand new video essay on Crime Hunter, Bullets of Rage by Japanese cinema expert Tom Metz. This is great. Packed with information, only like 13 minutes long, but talks about, you know, Japan being ahead of the curve on the video store kind of boom, the VHS boom, talking about V Cinema and all the rip-offs, and how the video stores just needed product kind of similar to our SOV stuff, and how basically you could make an independent movie and make money off it and become kind of a minor, like, you know, thing back in the day. It's a little different, but yeah, great start to the V Cinema Essentials set. I'm looking forward to the next two next week. Okay, next up is from Magnolia Magnet. I think this is one of the new partner labels of Vinegar Syndrome, and this is Severance from 2006, directed by Chris Smith, who did Creep and Triangle. And Chris Smith directed a handful of really cool horror movies in that time period. I remember Creep like in that, and I love Severance, and I still do. So this is a British horror comedy kind of thriller deal, more horror comedy slasher deal. And you know, after Shaun of the Dead, every time you mention a British horror comedy, you got to mention Shaun of the fucking Dead. But you know, after Shaun of the there was a lot more of these getting put to the stateside, and Severance has the lead from the faculty's in here, Danny Dyer's in here, Tony Nyman's in here, so it's got Andy Nyman. It's got a really nice cast, and Danny Dyer I remember from Doghouse in this, and he's just got a great quality about him. So essentially, the director and writer wanted to make this movie basically about, like an Office. The Office meets Deliverance is what they called it. But The Office came out. Whatever. They couldn't do that, and they had a whole bunch of different titles for it. Pink Slip, but that doesn't translate well. And essentially, the movie just ended up being kind of a group of people that work for a company, Paradise, or I can't remember what it's called, but they sell guns around the world, right? So they could easily have some enemies. So they end up going to, I can't remember what country, but it's just like Hungary is where it's filmed or something like that. I don't remember exactly where it's filmed, but it's supposed to be Eastern Europe. They're supposed to go to this vacation kind of trip and bond as a team. There's like 7 of them. They all have unique, different personalities, and at first, maybe some of them are a little jerks or weird or not pleasant or annoying, but as the movie progresses, you kind of learn to love all of them, and things don't really, go their way. It does take a while to warm up, about 45-50 minutes, but they do give you a stinger in the very beginning to keep your attention in terms of gore and violence. A lot of films were very gory in the early 2006, thanks to stuff like Hostel and Saw, and just kind of became more mainstream, which is kind of happening now when you see stuff like Terrifier or in the theaters, Terrifier 3 and stuff, which I kind of embrace seeing those kind of wacky, crazy-ass movies like that in theaters again. But, or ever, because they never really made that much mainstream, that kind of stuff. But, so Severance, as it progresses, there's kind of a killer out there that starts to attack them, and there's some really brutal deaths, some funny deaths, and you really kind of side with the characters. Danny Dyer is high the entire time. He gets high right off the bat, so it's a lot of comedy ensues with that aspect. There's some great awkward humor where kind of the boss is like, you're perfect the way you are, and then he kind of keeps digging himself into a hole where he's like, I don't mean in a sexual way, I mean, as a woman, and it just keeps digging himself. But it's just everybody's really solid in this and funny. The only negative is, which is a positive in reality, is when the characters die, I kind of want to see more of them. It has a couple twists at the end, and it gets a little bit bigger and a little bit more crazy and violent, which I love. But there is a showstopper in the scene involving a rocket launcher, which cracks me up every fucking time. Incredibly dark. And it does a couple of things. They're talking about in the commentaries and stuff. There's 2 commentaries. The original commentary with Danny Dyer and a lot of the cast and crew laughing and enjoying it. And a new commentary where Kim Newman moderates, and it's Chris Smith, and I think the writer or producer talking about it. And that's really interesting as well. And they talk about how they kind of branch back and forth between the comedy and the dark comedy and the humor and the horror all kind of meets between it. And they do a really good job here. And they also do a pretty good job. This was shot in like 2-3 different locations in the woods, the Isles, and then they would go back to like the Eastern European location. So it's like, this is really interesting. It's just a fun movie where they never even give the answer that who the antagonist is. They show you possibilities, and then they kind of you kind of take your own idea and mixture of it. It looked much better than expected, being released on Blu-ray, the old DVD. But this was shot on digital, so like I expected dog shit, right? I expected this and like Murder Party to look so bad, but this one held up pretty well. It looks really good. It was well shot. But I think that Severance, love it or hate it, I think that I think it needs another look at it. I think a lot of people will enjoy this when they see this. I rewatching it, I really did enjoy it, and I always liked it. But it held up, and I think it got a little bit better. But so we have 2 audio commentaries here, one with the director and then co-writer James Moran, and moderated by film critic Kim Newman. Booklet with new writings by film critic Molly Henry. And then we have archival. This has Chris Smith, Danny Dyer, Tim McNeary, John Frankish, Andy Nyman, Babu Cisse, and James Moran. Intro scene and animatic, the making of Severance feature, the genesis of Severance featurette, behind the scenes footage being Danny Dyer featurette, Danny Dyer fight scene rehearsal, deleted scenes, Parasite corporate video, outtakes, not so special FX, crashing a coach featurette, additional crash footage, alternative ending, storyboard, 1 hour of uncut EPK material, including extended interviews with cast and crew, animal training interview, Frankish on set interviews with crew, theatrical trailer, multiple TV spots. Recommended. If you haven't seen this one, check it out. I have a lot of fun with it. I I'd like to see The Cottage get a Blu-ray. I think that was a Sony. And Botched. I remember Botched being pretty fun too, but I think Severance was my favorite of the movies, actually. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about Sinners, brand new movie. Ryan Coogler film, who directed Black Panther, which I think was one of the better Marvel movies for sure. This stars Michael B. Jordan, who is a great actor, and I don't get to see him that much because he does a lot of movies I'm not like super invested in. Like, not that they're bad, it's just I've never had much interest in. Creed, for some reason. I loved the Rocky movies growing up, but I didn't watch Creed. Don't know why. Loved him in Black Panther. So when I kept seeing the trailer for Sinners, it's one of the only trailers of the new films this year. I was like, that looks pretty good. Honestly, that looks pretty solid, looks enjoyable, looks entertaining, and I thought it was better than the trailer. So I love this movie. I thought it was amazing. It reminded me of, nightmares I used to have as a kid, but it also reminded me of From Dusk Till Dawn and Django Unchained together, which are two of my favorite films, or most entertaining films. I love watching those movies. But so I don't want to spoil every detail about this movie, but it's a period piece about two brothers played both by Michael B. Jordan, Smoke and Stack, and they had basically just come back to their hometown and they want to start like a kind of a juke music kind of bar place and isolate it and have their own thing, have their own freedom. And some villainous presence comes into their lives and all hell breaks loose, and there's plenty of violence, there's plenty of action, and there's a great little ending that I expected at a certain point, was very happy to see it. And then there's a great post-credit sequence as well, so stick around. But this movie has a lot to do with music, a lot to do with singularity, a lot to do with like cults and that weird kind of element of belonging and you know what I mean? And it's so interesting in that aspect. I thought that the way they handled it was great. There's a scene in here, and I know it's a showstopper that everybody keeps talking about, that reminded me of Gaspar Noé in Climax or Enter the Void, when we kind of just say, fuck it, we're going to do whatever. We're just going to kind of just pure cinema and go, and after that they go into the camera work, and they just put me into the element, and then it was so well done, and then they kind of creep out into the world and we see what they're seeing, and a metaphorical, or a literal, I guess you'd say, visually a literal metaphorical in the film, but literal burning down the house, because it's just so damn good of a party. But yeah, just all that kind of stuff I loved. I thought, and that scene, honestly, the scene that everybody's talking about, it almost lost me at first, because like, what the fuck? It just threw me off for a split second, and then I kind of I was like, oh, okay, and I adjusted, and I really enjoyed it. So go see it if you're big, and the runtime didn't bother me. Minimal CGI, there is some. It's shot on film, from my understanding. I believe that's what I read. And it looked different too. There's always this time I walk into a movie, it's like, I love that movie, and somebody's like, oh, it's shot on film. It's like, maybe I'm just liking these movies because they're shot on film, and it's visually something that I just connects me to an older time. But yeah, it just said everything I wanted. I was really impressed with it, really happy with it, and just great family bonds in here as well. Just amazing. Check it out. Now I want to get into some spoilers for this movie. So spoiler alert. The thing that I really liked was, this is a vampire movie. I kind of might have spoiled that from Dustin. I think the trailer kind of gives that away. But the vampire lore and the powers are a little bit different than a lot of the other ones. So in a way, you know how you had Bram Stoker's Dracula, when the Dracula would have some sort of connection with, is it Lucy who spit? Or Lucy and Nina. She has connection with both of them. But Nina's the one in the bed, and she can see where he's at. They have that kind of connection. The vampire has this as well, and the vampire is like kind of an Irish kind of character, and he has music, and he's drawn to them because of the music. And they say that, in this, there's kind of the mythos, or just the idea, you think like the devil in Georgia, or the devil in Daniel Jones, that the old kind of tale, you know what I mean, that he's just drawn to this music, the evil is whatever. So our character kind of comes into this world, just thrown into it, running in the sun, and the sun's beating on him, and you just know the sun had just rose, and he barely just made it to this place in time. But it just creates enough mystery about the character, and enough of its own unique mythology that I really loved. So it's definitely about the singularity, right? Because when they have that big kind of scene in Sinners where they go up and they start bringing all these musical people from the past and present together to make this kind of thing. They're all individuals, but they're coming together to make something beautiful. But when the vampires have it, they have their songs that they've all had, and they're sharing the mind and the memories of each other. But there's kind of one singularity. They don't really have their own thoughts at that point. It's kind of a weird idea. Like when one sings, the leader sings, they all sing that same song. They don't have their own kind of song or melody. It's all the same. It's like you're not thinking for yourself. Because at one point you think, maybe maybe this vampire cult's not so bad. I can be with my loved ones and feel what they feel and be together forever. But at the same time, you know, you do lose your soul. Those glowing red eyes aren't lying. So it's just like this really cool thing. You lose something, right? You definitely lose something, and they definitely put that in the film. There's a great scene. You know how they say you must invite a vampire in? There's a character that's like, come on, invite me in. That all these vampires like, you've been walking inside all day. Why the fuck are you there? And it's just this great argument. It was just hilarious because it's like that would fucking happen, really. Delroy Lindo's in here, fantastic. Comic relief, but also a badass. It just sets up the time period perfectly, the characters perfectly, the music perfectly. Man, and Michael B. Jordan is electric. Love this movie. Check it out. And I have to say this, I am so glad that every once in a while I'll start thinking, man, I hate new movies. I don't like new movies. They're not as good. The new movies are not nearly as good as the old movies. I don't have the same connection to them. And I start thinking, am I becoming jaded? Am I becoming like, get off my lawn? And I'm looking at, and then I see something like this, or The Substance, or Exuma, or Psycho Goreman, and I'm like, man, they're still making movies that speak to me, that I love, that I have a connection with, and I'm glad for that, right? But then I see a lot of the same people. Not everybody's going to get everything, but I see a lot of people that just seem to hate everything, that seem not to get anything, and seem to just cross their arms and say, you know, this movie attempted something kind of smart. Maybe it's obvious to them. I don't know, but I don't think the movie's going to try to hide too many meanings in it. It's just kind of has a nice, rich depth that I think is worth exploring. But a lot of people will look at something as that has that's not like super hidden or super nuanced, but it's nuanced enough that it's kind of unique in its way, and say, man, that's just not intriguing or interesting enough for me, and cross their arms and say, well, it's not like this. They get so weird in their taste. They get so far away from the normal that, you know, you get guys telling you that there's just the worst movies or the most obscure or random movies are the best. And I love obscure random movies too, but it's not... they get so far from the normalcy that anything is. You know, their taste is so fucked up that they can't relate to anyone, and they just hate everything, and they just become miserable. I don't know. It's not everybody. Everybody has a unique taste and everything like that, but I'm seeing a lot of, like, weird hate for this movie. Like, and like, a lot of people are exploring it and loving it and, like, sharing it, but there's a lot of people that are out there that just seem bitter. Or they just didn't get it. Like, you know, yeah, maybe you just think it's a simple movie or something like that. Maybe you just didn't get it. Not everything's for everybody, though, right, guys? Some people may hate this, but if you want to see some fucking vampire action, you want to see some violence, you want to see some characters, you want to see some fucking squibs, some machine gun squibs, and some fun, and some, like, sadness and a drama, check it out. I love the fuck out of it, all right? Good stuff. Edited well, too, and just packs a lot in. I didn't feel the runtime. Center's great. Okay, we're going to get those 1982 movies. First up is Second Sight by Dominic Graff. And I didn't think I was going to be able to find this one, and then it just popped up somewhere, and I said, awesome, I've been wanting to see this one here. Now, I wanted to see it because it was kind of higher up on a popularity list, and I couldn't find it anywhere. And also, the director, Dominic Graff, did a movie called The Cat that Radiance Films put out. Really cool movie, so I was checking out. I wanted to see his directorial debut, his horror film, Second Sight. This kind of has a line. I did AI subtitles. They weren't great. I didn't lose that much information, I don't think, but it's a kind of a premonition, a kind of reincarnation story here, where we have this woman who's kind of drawn to this apartment because she believes she's been reincarnated and a woman committed suicide in that apartment, so she's kind of drawn to it. And at the same time, we have this young man who's kind of basically just out of a relationship. He works at, like, he examines eyes and stuff like that. So he's become infatuated with this girl. So we have this girl obsessed with the apartment. We have this guy obsessed with her, and he starts to kind of stalk her in a weird way. And they start this kind of, I say, a kind of semi-unhinged relationship. And I guess it would be kind of a premonition style thing. You think it's more of a reincarnation, but it leads to, like, kind of a dark element and dark ending. Overall, I like it. I don't think that I could grasp everything because the subtitles weren't perfect. It's a great looking movie too. It's got kind of a dark, gloomy feel to it, and I think it fits with this one. The lead performances are both fantastic, but it just needed a little bit more, I guess, differences from other films. Like something like Life After Life from 1981, I think is really cool. Hong Kong movie that does reincarnation, and we see a lot of reincarnation in a lot of movies, especially from this time. Like Allison's Birthday is another one from 81, I believe, that kind of has a reincarnation story or a stealing of the souls, a Brotherhood of Satan, that kind of deal. But this is different, of course. This woman believes she's being reincarnated, and she's kind of obsessed with it. Kind of history is going to repeat itself, and it's more of a premonition style thing. Again, I'm missing some pieces, but overall, Second Sight's worth watching. Interesting movie by an interesting director. His first time directing a horror film, I think, and his first directed film, Second Sight. Good stuff. All right, the next one here is Karma Punishment, and this is an Indonesian flick. It's fucking wild. It's weird. And I watch a lot of Indonesian flicks from 1982, and they're always like, this is the craziest movie ever. And I watch it, I'm like, Witch with Flying Head was okay. It's just a little too sloppy for me to love. And there's a lot of sloppy stuff, translation issues, dubbing issues, subtitle issues, and Karma Punishment has, the subtitle issues. I used AI subtitles, but the storyline's pretty easy to follow. So we have this kind of creepy guy who takes advantage or rapes. I don't necessarily, they say rape, but it looks more like she's into it. It's a take advantage of and manipulates this woman, has sex with her in kind of this jungle waterfall, and she ends up pregnant, but he wants nothing to do with her because he has his own girlfriend and everything like that, and leaves her and beats her and tells her to go away. When she's pregnant, she gives birth to her mother, and I think kind of dies in that aspect. Our lead guy too, who slept with this girl, has also in the very beginning has gone to like a shaman, and he becomes like given this magic ring, so he has powers, and he sleeps with this woman. She ends up giving birth, and the mother tells, find your I don't think it's weird. I don't remember exactly what, but tells her maybe one day you'll find your father. So she's kind of, we fast forward to her growing up, and she kind of runs into this young guy, and they start this relationship, but it's all going to get tied back to this villainous guy, and they start to cross paths, and she's going to have this big showdown with him, and that's kind of the plot of the movie. There's a lot of wonky, weird martial arts movies. There's some sort of like slave, sex trading thing, sex trafficking element of the film that doesn't really go anywhere. You just realize how bad the bad guy is, and of course it's going to end exactly how you'd like, with a giant magic battle. Is it an Indonesian horror film fantasy movie if there's not a giant magic battle? I don't think it is, but every one of these ends that way, and this one's pretty awesome. Somebody gets their head knocked off, and I've never seen the dude regrow a fucking head, but it's one of the coolest special effects in the Indonesian movie I've ever seen. If you like the crazy ones like Queen of Black Magic or Mr. Simbali or The Warrior, then check out Karma Punishment. I love the title too, because it definitely reminds me of Grave Torture, right? The movie that came out last year, Grave Torture, like that idea that you're going to be punished in your grave is Karma Punishment. Like, it's just a very funny title. But the AI subtitles at the very end were funny. It's like, you didn't kill him, his demonic knowledge did. I'm like, okay, far out, man, far fucking out. But Karma Punishment, entertaining. Okay, this one is a TV movie here. This is The Eyes of Amaryllis, which is a flower, it's a weird word, but it's one of those ones that you see spelled out and you're like, huh? But then when you hear it, you're like, oh, Amaryllis, yeah. So this takes place in 1880, and what we have is a grandmother writes her family and says, I had an injury. I would like you to send your granddaughter, because I don't know her. I'd like to get to meet her. I'd like you to send your granddaughter so she could kind of help me and take care of her and meet her grandmother. She lives on the waters. She's isolated. The husband's dead a very long time, and the father and the grandmother had kind of a falling out. They don't really talk to each other. So they bring the daughter there, and at first they seem like they're going to get along. She starts learning about her grandmother, starts learning about the sea and all these kind of things like that. And as it progresses, we kind of learn her tragic story and the tragic story of the sea, about her husband being the captain who disappeared at sea, and she kind of goes out there looking for clues forever. And there's kind of this strange guy that wanders, who was kind of known the husband and had like a very tragic kind of love affair, falling out thing and everything like that, and he kind of travels the ocean and everything like that, and he's definitely otherworldly, if that makes any sense. But it kind of gets to the point where there's going to be a giant storm, and she's waiting for the head of the the ship, the Amaryllis. I think the ship's called the Amaryllis as well, but the head of the ship, the statue that was carved out of her face for her husband did or whatever, but she's been waiting for this for years. But there's a nice little scene at the very end, which I guess the only movie I could say which is a hint is Escape from Alcatraz, if that makes any sense to anybody, but it's very much like that. Overall, actually a really solid TV movie with well acted, kind of heartwarming, good stuff. Eyes of Amaryllis has horror elements. It's not really a horror movie, but it does have kind of a ghost kind of haunting kind of thing like that, which I enjoyed. Good stuff. Okay, the next one here is 27 Hours with the Dead, and this is by Janillo. I can't think of Panera. What he did, the movies that I recently picked up. It was like Siniestro, the double feature from Colombia. This guy's a Colombian director. This is 27 Hours with the Dead. It's a 101-minute long movie. Basically, this is the story in the very beginning. A doctor discovers that he gives these rabbits this pill and it kills them, and they come back like X amount of hours, 27 hours or something like that. Rabbits maybe 9 hours. It's a little different. They come back to life. So this other doctor who doesn't really know what the fuck he's doing is like, he's I don't even know what his position is. So he decides to steal the pills, and he talks to this young man that he knows, and he says, "Listen, why don't we do a life insurance scam?" So the wife and him get in on it, and they're planning on giving him the pills, waiting till he's dead, and then like kind of moving on. So that's the whole movie. This is a Tales from the Crypt episode, basically. It should be a 25-30 minute thing. It reminds you of the episode of Tales from the Crypt, Abracadaver, or something along the lines of the Tales from the Crypt episode with Bogart, right? Here's looking at you, kid. But this is literally just a 20-minute segment drawn out into 100 minutes. They practice on a kid. They give the kid the medicine. I'm like, that's so fucked up. But of course, there's going to be some just desserts at the end, some twist at the end. It's not poorly made. It's not poorly acted. It's just poorly paced. Incredibly poorly paced movie that is a 25-minute story stretched into 101 minutes. I would not recommend 27 Hours with the Dead. I wouldn't say it's bad, but I wouldn't say it's good. I would say it's very mediocre. Okay, this one here is a Brazilian film, if I'm not mistaken, and this is Amazon Jail. We're not going to talk about Amazon Jail 2 from 1987. We're going to talk about the one from 1982. This director also did Bear Behind Bars, which I should have watched for 1980. I didn't. These were all released by Blue Underground at one point. But this one, yeah, this is a ridiculous-ass fucking sleazy movie. So we have a group of kind of like, in the very beginning, we have a group of girls that are in kind of the Amazon jungle prison movie. This is like a whole subgenre within a subgenre. And they are told that you are basically, they were kidnapped. The other movie this year that has like the whole white slavers kind of deal thing is Raw Force. As well. What a fun, goofy movie. But also Vinegar Syndrome release. This is Vinegar Syndrome. So they tell these girls, you guys got to basically work really well and you're going to find your dream man. You'll be bought and sold and things like that. There's an English and I think it's the only English version. I watched in English. But so basically, it's that kind of story. A couple of the women aren't into it, and the nephew of the main kind of slaver guy is in love with one of the girls, so he keeps telling her, I'm going to help you escape. But there is so much booty dancing and naked girls running around, sticking their asses in old man's faces, and them running around party scenes and stuff like that. So, like, if you get your pervert card out, because there's plenty of that kind of stuff going on, it just kind of does that 2 or 3 times with groups of girls until they kind of plot something, and the girls eventually escape, and you're like, oh, we're kind of coming to an end here. A lot of the characters have been killed, been taken away, and then like, nope, we're going to have a whole scene of them going through the jungle, which is very much any of the kind of prison escape movies like Escape from Hell or Escape from Hellhole. I think that one's called Escape from Hellhole or Hellhole, whatever it's called, from 1980, where we kind of have that idea. So they're like kind of trying to escape, and somebody's going to get bitten by a snake, and all these other people are going to be introduced and whatnot, and it's just every character they come in contact with. Most of the guys are sleazy pieces of shit ready to rape somebody or sleep with somebody with ridiculously goofy lines. The character that they run into at the mining facility is some religious kind of crazy guy, and this actor is like Roque Rodriguez, I think is his name. He pops up in some of the Coffin Joe movies. He's in Violence and Flesh. He's in almost every Brazilian sleazy movie I watch. He pops up as kind of like the despicable sleazy character. In Violence and Flesh, he's the homosexual prisoner who rapes the male actor. He's also an asshole in the sequel, the Coffin Joe second Coffin Joe movie. But yeah, he always plays this kind of sleazy guy in the movies, and this is no different. He plays a real weirdo, where he's like this religious priest who's like, I sleep with all the men, and I don't want you women around. It's just like, whatever. But it's a ridiculously sleazy, trashy exploitation movie that is enjoyable. It looks really good on Blu-ray, and there's some cool special features on here. Actually, a lot of good special features on this first disc here. But we have, I think we have it presented in Portuguese and English, which is cool. Commentary track with film historian Fabio Valenzo. Velozo. And this is, English is not his first language, but he talks about some of the people, the company, how it got released, why the movie stopped being made, all that kind of interesting stuff you'd want to know about. And then we have brand new interview with Amazon Jail lead actress Elizabeth Hartman, with the director part 2, conversation supporting actress Vanessa Alves. Latin American exploitation cinema, an interview with film historian Dr. Victoria Rutola. That's good and interesting. And then we have the Sardine Women of Prison, 60 minutes, a video essay by film historian Annie Rose. All moment. And that talks about kind of like, Marquise de Sade kind of style involving prisons and things like that, and degenerate behavior and sexual stuff and all that kind of things like that. And some of the tropes of the prison movies where they're spraying them with a hose. Overall, a nice release from a solid exploitation, sleazy-ass movie. And the main slaver in the first movie, his voice is dubbed over hilarious. It's a very common actor. He's like, yeah, we're going to get out of here. It's just fucking ridiculous, over-the-top shit. But love it. Amazon Jail. Check it out. The Patreon pick here. Now, I had covered this movie before, but I decided to do it again because we have had a new Blu-ray release, new scan of it. And this is 1973, Alejandro Jodorowsky's The Holy Mountain. Classic fucking movie, insane movie, one of the weirdest, wackiest, surreal cult movies of all time. Alejandro Jodorowsky is one of the most, I guess you'd say, best cult directors of all time. Of course, he did El Topo in 1970, Santa Sangre in 1989. Both movies I love. I think I watched Endless Poetry as well. But his movies are just unlike anybody else's movies. Everything's put into them. They're incredibly intense. They break a lot of rules. They break a lot of taboos. And they show a lot of things. And every scene has something to say. And it's very thought-provoking and weird and surreal and absurd. Surrealism, absurdity, and spiritual stuff all going on in one. So basically, The Holy Mountain, it's a lot of allegory to biblical allusions and things like that in this movie. And also, he is a philosophy guy. He studies philosophy, and he studied lots of different religions. So it's a bunch of different mixtures of all these kind of different things in here to tell kind of like the ultimate spiritual kind of story, and also his condemnation of society at the time, and all sorts of things like that, or just at least critiques of it. But we have this kind of thief who's basically like a Jesus character, and he hangs out with this guy with no arms or legs. Quadriplegic, amputee character, and they kind of go around and like I guess they live in squalor, steal, and things like that. And maybe this is like the times when Jesus was not like, you know, all his time was missing from that thing. And like there's times when they like beat him and kidnap him, like the Roman kind of characters dressed as Romans, and they make these statues of him. Like, so it's like become like religion is commercialized, and thou shalt not like worship, like what, all that kind of stuff like that, all in that. Alejandro Jodorowsky is an alchemist in the film, and he finds him. And he says, I'm going to introduce you. I'm going to find these other 8 characters, or 7 or 8 characters that are all, you know, kind of these thieves like you, but they're like the most powerful men and women in the world. And they all do these kind of different activities, right? Like one's a gun maker. One actually makes like kids' toys that kind of manipulate what they see. One is a manufacturer of art, kind of just commercializing and making art a capitalist venture. That all these kind of things like that, where you kind of see that like everything has just been so manufactured and pasted down. It's just all bullshit. Everything's bullshit now, right? It's all garbage. And so basically, he takes these people on this spiritual kind of adventure where they have to climb the Holy Mountain. And all these kind of things like that happen. At times they kind of have these weird kind of flashes, almost like these kind of tripping weird kind of things going on with them. And visually there's amazing scenes in here. There's some really gnarly nasty stuff that you don't really like seeing, with like the toads and the toads and the lizards all getting blown up. It's unpleasant, but it's just kind of a recreation of like real things that happen. That's how people just make these mockeries of things that happen. And I listened to a lot of stuff about this movie before I was going to talk about it, and I've covered it before. And looking at it in that aspect, a lot of it is obvious in certain ways, but there's so much going on. What's it say as a whole, and what's it say in general? I think it's great. I think the music's great. I think the acting's great, and I think it's very funny at the very end of the film, right? He takes down that fourth wall and says, this has just been a film. Now it's time for you. It's time for you to start your journey, to discover yourself. This was just the beginning, right? So you're like, it's really kind of wild to think that, right? No, take down the layer, zoom out, and now it's time for you to begin your journey and your self-exploration. The guy's lived so long. How old is Jodorowsky? He's probably 100 years old. He just never seems like he's going to die. He's just kind of an amazing individual, interesting individual. And I just, the movies that I've seen by him, I've thought were all impeccable, or at least interesting, and he's just one of a kind. It's like I talked about Sallow last week. It's like these cult movies, these movies that have left an impact on, history, film history, and society and pop culture. I think that there'll always be somewhat, anybody that knows film or watches any kind of movies will know of these movies to a certain extent, or stumble across them. I at least hope they still do. I hope these movies don't vanish into obscurity. That would be incredibly sad, wouldn't it? But the search to be immortal. How do you be immortal? Make a movie like Holy Mountain, and you become immortal, like Alejandro Jodorowsky, right? You live forever. Apparently he's got to live forever, metaphorically and through film. But yeah, great stuff. Maybe talk a little bit about the features on here. The new scan looks great, by the way. It's a Blu-ray, but it's a 4K scan. Jodorowsky remembers The Holy Mountain, new interview filmed in Paris, new filmed introduction by Richard Pena, professor of film studies at Columbia University. Pablo Leder, Jodorowsky's right-hand man. Jodorowsky's personal assistant, remembers acting in El Topo and Holy Mountain and his time spent with the director. A to Z of The Holy Mountain, a video essay by Ben Cobb. This is interesting and wild and crazy. Deleted scenes with director's commentary. The Terra Tarot, sorry. A short film in which Jodorowsky explains the secrets of the cards. Tarot cards. My bad. It's spelled different, though. But yeah, great movie. Check it out if you haven't. Be surprised if you haven't. Let's do these questions, comments, and concerns and all that jazz. This comment smells of death. Shaw Brothers didn't seem to be very big on giving women a chance behind the camera. I can make a shitty bros before hoes joke, but I won't. When you start covering horror in 83, you'll probably get to watch the only Shaw Brothers horror film directed by a woman, at least the only one that I know of. Mei Ling Tu's Siamese twins. Unfortunately, it's not all that good. Not that that has ever stopped you from watching a film before. No, it hasn't. Look forward to hearing your review of Serie Noire. It's a film that I first saw 15 to 20 years ago, knowing nothing about it, and was completely blown away by the lead actor's performance. Your Corman story actually sounds like it could be a plot of a movie. A bunch of kids who hear a fictitious story about an entity called the Corman, who they conjure into reality through their imagination somehow. Even the Corman sounds like the title of a straight-to-DVD film you might have found in a bargain bin in the early 2000s. You should try to pitch that shit to Blumhouse. It could be your ticket to fame and fortune. The idea of thinking of something and bringing it to reality is always how my stories start. Like, then we can do mental, like, all that kind of shit. I always think like that. But yeah, it definitely sounds like something. Patrick Doherty, are you going to cover Next of Kin for 82? It's a great film and deserves more attention. Yes, I'm just getting it scheduled, hopefully this month. Next month. Nick Moore from Belgium. It's such an unsettling film, but I can't help returning to Twisted Nerve again and again. I was lucky enough to score the excellent Umbrella Entertainment release. I learned of the movie through the creepy whistle, of course, used in Kill Bill, as well as season 1 of American Horror Story, which borrows quite a lot from this film, including an influential classy woman played by Jessica Lange, giving birth to several deformed kids before birthing a beautifully highly intelligent boy who turns out to be quite evil, of course. The film used to be on YouTube. I love the visual style of the film and the Bernard Herrmann score. The acting is phenomenal, not surprising when you take a gander at the cast. Billy Whitelock, Hail Miss Baylock, yeah, of course. Frank Finley, Thory Walters, and the hot young stars of the day, Haley Mills, and Hywell Bennett, who had already worked together before in 1966 The Family Way, and would be at each other's throats again in Agatha Christie's Endless Night. The pair were magic together on screen. Questions. Name both your favorite and least favorite Paul Schrader film. My favorite is Blue Collar, and my least favorite, that's hard. I've only really, I know I've probably seen a crummy Paul Schrader movie, but I remember the first 4 he made, and he did the one with Ethan Hawke, where he's like the priest. I don't think I dislike any of his movies that I've seen, honestly. Till next week, God willing, and should you hear a familiar whistle behind you during your morning run, I suggest run faster. They won't catch me. Nash 38527. The Beyond is a good movie, but I think it has the potential to be better. Seems a little rushed in my opinion. I guess I could see that too. It never bothered me. You know, I saw it at such a young age and an impactful age that I've never really sat down and been like, well, that sucks, or I noticed this or that. But it does seem like they could add 5-10 minutes at the very end to pad things out, like a little before the very ending, right before the climax. We could have maybe a couple minute scenes, but I love it. One of my favorites. Martin VP, thumbs up, thank you. Audio Love, One Dark Night was one of my faves as a kid, thank you for giving the thumbs up. Nocturnal Nasties, just found your channel, love your VHS collection, thank you, thanks for subscribing, hope you subscribed. Did oh well. Gaius Baltor, what? How did I not know that The Beyond had a new 4K release coming? It's my favorite Fulci film, and for some reason always looked worse on disc than the other Fulci movies of that time period. I'm getting that BD for sure. Just baffled why they didn't use the original poster images for the packaging. It would have looked so much better. But 6 disc, my mouth is watering. It seems that the only difference between the limited edition and the standard one is the eyeball, so I guess I'll just have to wait for the next batch. Abba96, hi, I would recommend that you do a review of Limbo, directed by Sui Cheng in year 2021. The movie is very visual and black and white about 2 cops hunting for a twisted serial killer in the slum of Hong Kong. I have the German 4K Ultra book, and it is amazing. It sounds awesome. Angela 150, great review, James. One Dark Night is among my favorites. Cat People is also good with the beautiful Natasha Kinski. Agreed. Way Up Dude, best channel on YouTube. Thank you very much. Saint 3188. I have only seen Cat People and the Beyond out of all these reviews. And I love the Zombie 1979 video tribute at the end. Zombie is one of my all-time favorite horror movies. I love Zombie. Love it. Jamie Cowboys, just found your channel. I subbed. Thank you. Beyond Sour Ground. For the record, I do think your content is better, as the format of the content is much more refined now, and certainly in production value is night and day difference from the DVD Fiends era. but the spirit of your content remains the same. You keep the focus all about the movies like it was back in the day before people became obsessed with opening the mail on camera, making pointless kill videos, or analyzing decades-old movies through the lens of modern-day political ideology. Plus, the deep dive discussion videos with actual published film historians and people in the physical media industry subsedes anything any of us were doing back in those days. I appreciate it. And that the way I responded, I was like, hopefully it's better. It was like kind of like one of those things where I was like fishing for a compliment, and I wasn't. But you get what I mean. To be honest, I don't really know how to answer the most disturbing movie question either. To me, Cannibal Holocaust would always be the ultimate disturbing movie, but like you, I'm desensitized to it well now. Star 80 was a curveball answer. I haven't seen that one yet, but I plan to check it out sometime, as I'm a big fan of Galaxina, a film that desperately needs a 4K upgrade. Have you seen Autumnborn? It was Dorothy Stranton's first film before Galaxina. It's a woman in prison flick with porn-level production values, but different from the typical woman in prison films because the whole plot revolves around demonstrating how Dorothy's captors use abuse and control to break her will and drive her into submission. It's poorly directed and acted, but feels more disturbing than it should, knowing about the real abuse of Dorothy was going off camera. It could have been made for a tense confrontational exploitation film. It's just poorly realized. I'll have to check that out. I wouldn't even bother trying to rank gross out disgusting movies. There's a lot of those, and they don't land as disturbing to me. They're the jump scare movies of confrontational underground horror genre, but I'll throw out a few curveballs too. Fight for Your Life might be the most politically incorrect movie ever made. Great movie. And Goodbye Uncle Tom takes the cake for most shocking movie because it's literally shocking that they were able to pull together the money, people, and resources to make a movie at that scope. Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer gut punched me the first time I saw it, and it's one of the few ultra disturbing movies that's also a fantastic, well-made movie. Yeah, like if they're well-made, it gets me, but like you can be disturbing in a piece of shit and I won't care. If that makes any sense. But yeah, Goodbye Uncle Tom, you're just like, who the fuck paid for this? And it's just like it wants to condemn the American South and Americans in general, but then it's also like exploiting it. You're just like, what the fuck? It's just also like Cannibal Holocaust on that level. It's crazy. I've been thinking about 1982 list as you've been covering the year, and One Dark Night makes my top 20 for 82, but not my top 10. But I do regard it as an underrated film and recommend it for anyone that hasn't seen it. Had it been a bit more graphic and the pacing a bit tighter, I think people would be talking about it more. But I love Raymar and the themes of psychic vampirism and I love the levitating corpses. It's a very original concept. It is pretty cool. Ken Coakley, I'll start with my favorite of the bunch. Twisted Nerve had me going for the entire movie. I watched it early in the morning and didn't make my way on the TV table like I usually do, and didn't start eating breakfast until the movie was over. Nurses come by after 10 minutes to collect the trays and were being quite annoyed that I didn't touch it yet. The movie was up my alley. I love movies from 1968. They seem to have the same coloring progress. I can't put it into words, but The Boston Strangler and other films look great on film because of the coloring process. I know what you mean. Rosemary's Baby is another one. The cast was amazing. Will Bennett had a great look. I wish he had done some Hammer films. I haven't seen any other films starring him. He's a good-looking kid. He's good-looking, yet he'll also look like Mike Myers' character. Yeah. Billy Whitelaw played Haley's mom. Haley Mills' mom. She would later appear in The Omen as Damien's demonic nanny. I love Billy Whitelaw in that movie. The angry boyfriend was played by Christian Roberts, who played one of the main students in This Sir with Love. Barry Foster played the drunken character Henderson, worked with Hitchcock and Frenzy, of course, and appeared in my favorite British action film, The Wild Geese. Haley Mills came a long way from the Disney movies. I met her son, Crispian, who fronted a band called Kula Shaker. Their cover of Deep Purple's Hush was used in I Know What You Did Last Summer. Her sister Juliet, of course, starred in Beyond the Door. When the Martin character sadly predicted that his brother with Down syndrome didn't have long to live, at the point, people with Down syndrome had a short life expectancy. I don't know about that now. I didn't know until a couple years ago that the average human had 46 chromosomes, 23 from mom, 23 from dad. I just knew that people with Down syndrome possessed an extra chromosome. I wondered why people might have that thought he had Down syndrome. He would have done better to portray himself as a person with traumatic brain injury. I don't think he had Down syndrome. I think his brother did, but they suggested that if you had a child with Down syndrome, that you could have a child who ended up being like a sociopath as well, which is just nonsense science, and that's why they apologized in the beginning of the movie or something like that. But he did play it like he was slow to them. It's weird. So it's kind of muddled. Now for One Dark Night, I first watched it in a video in 1985. I remember waiting for some action. I liked Meg Tilly because I liked the big chill. The woman with the toothbrush shut out because of the toothbrush. I wonder why she did it and why the other students didn't bust her chops over it. This movie was slow burn, very slow burn. About the toothbrush is Tom McLaughlin put it in there because he knew a girl that used to do that, and she said she kind of just liked the way it was on her teeth, but she also did it because if she had a toothbrush on the subway or something, people would leave her alone because they thought she was nuts. I saw the Cat People remake of the Drive-In with Burt Reynolds film Sharky's Machine. I knew of Natasha Kinski because of her dad, Claus, and because she had starred in the Roman Polanski film Tess, which critical hit. I like John Hurd because he starred with Nick Nolte in the film Beat. Hurd played Jack Kerouac, and Nick Nolte played Neil Cassidy. Hurd also had starred with Jeff Bridges in Cutter's Way. Of course, Hurd went on to star with Daniel Stern in the iconic film Chud. I watch it every Christmas. Cat People was a bit gory. The scene with Ed Begley Jr. got his arm ripped off was pretty shocking. Not as shocking as an incest story, but still shocking. Blue Collar is my favorite Paul Schrader directed film. Mine too. I like him better as a screenwriter. He had Taxi Driver and Rolling Thunder as a 1-2 punch. Fantastic movies. One last thing. Are you going to do Hell of Living Dead 4K review? It's my favorite Italian zombie film. You got some awesome stuff at Wasteland. Where did you get the City of the Living Dead shorts again? I know it was in Wasteland, but I wonder which table. Paul Bear Press. Those 2 shirts and the shorts were both from Paul Bear Press. I don't know if I'll cover Hell of Living Dead in 4K. I've covered it a few times already, but I think I do want to go back and watch some of the movies that I've covered a few times that got new 4K releases that I bought on my own. But I don't know yet, but I'll try to. Before I move on into the update, I want to give my patrons and my members on YouTube shout-outs, of course, that are still active and everything like that, and to everyone else that used to be. We have Sophie Bongos, Amy D, Tyler Tadeo, Anna Lewis, What the Flick, David Garrett, Milo169, Art Figueredo, Clint Eisner, Erie Cripps and Naked Chicks, great artists, Matt Wells, David Lewis, Barry Kemp, Travis Linscomb, Dan the Cameraman, Michael Brizon, Chris Rivers, Jim Simon, Tone Joker, 22 Shots of Moods and Horror, Jonathan Wilhelm, Dustin Mills, Russell Barber, Nick Mua, and then YouTube members Saint3188 and Roy Spun. I appreciate everything, guys. I really do. And enjoy the 8 years I've been doing it. Hopefully to a couple more. Let's hop into this update. All right. My Kino order came in when they had their sale. The Visitors here, Eliad Kazan, who did Rebel Without a Cause. This one I heard was good stuff. I can't remember who's in there. James Woods and Steve Railsback. So cool stuff. I hear good things about the movie. And then we're gonna drop that one. We have John Carradine, Revenge of the Zombies. Gotta love these classic old black and whites here. This one I've heard of. Don't know much about the movie. We have 1,000 Convicts and a Woman. Oh no. To the one's daughter, prison was a giant playpen. A cage of men to take, to break, or play with any way she wished. Heard of Son of 1,000 Maniacs, but this one looks a little bit different. What's next? We have Love Rites. This is by Wolverian Bolracek, who has Marina Pinheiro in it, who is in Living Dead Girl. I like this director's work. I don't know as much as I'd like, so I picked this one up. Next, we have April Fool's Day 4K here from Kino. I never loved this movie, but I'm willing to give it a chance. I know I was harsher on it than I should have been, and I think I was wrong. So 86, and I haven't watched it in like 20 years. So here we go. April Fool's Day. Next up, we have The Two Worlds of Jennie Logan. I picked this up because Frank D. Felitta directed it, and he directed One Dark Night, and he wrote stuff like The Entity, so I was pretty interested in it. More of a sci-fi romance story, but hey. We also have To Live and Die in L.A., William Friedkin, 4K here. William Peterson, William Dafoe. Supposed to do an amazing action film. This is a blind spot for me, but I'm going to watch it in style in 4K. And then we have one film detective here, Voodoo Black Exorcist. It was relatively cheap, and I like Film Detective, although this is an early release from them, so I don't know the quality of it. But hey, Aldo Sambrol's in there. And then we have my Vinegar Syndrome stuff here. Severance was one of those as well, but I guess a replacement disc for Demon Witch Child. Then we have The Nesting on 4K, 1981. Solid horror movie. A deluxe edition on The Nesting. It is a video nasty, too. I don't know why, but it ended up being there. But Old Blue Underground put this on Blu-ray, and now we have a 4K for Vinegar Syndrome. Oh, can I block these nipples? Animated nipples going to get me in trouble. This is Murder Rock, 4K here. Lucio Fulci Classic here. Got a booklet. Man, this is a deluxe edition of Murder Rock. Great movie that I remember. I remember liking it. It's been so long. I am looking forward to rewatching this, honestly. But Fulci's one of my all-time favorite directors, my second favorite director ever. And now we have another one in 4K. I'm happy to see that. Like one of those Russian puzzle dolls. All the cases, I got to put everything in. Me complaining. I got nice stuff. I have to do stuff with it. Wah. First world problems, right, guys? And then we have Curse of the Voodoo Curse of the Voodoo? What is happening here? Is that what it's called? Curse of the Voodoo. I could have swore that was a different title. Plus Devil Doll. We have Devil Doll on here. Plus Curse of the Voodoo. Curse of the Voodoo just sounds so stupid. It's the Voodoo! It's the Curse of the Voodoo! Sounds like some old guy just kind of screaming at you. I think these are British horror films. I think I had Curse of the Voodoo, but I've never did watch it. So then we have Bone Sickness here, Brian Pollin. Brian Pollin's one of the directors that puts so much work into his low-budget films. You got to support him. And I haven't seen Bone Sickness in a very, very long time. It was not my favorite Brian Pollin movie, but I am looking forward to rewatching this and realizing I was wrong. I love Fetus. Fetus is my favorite, I think. It's just, and Blood Pigs is wild, but what's the one? Cryptic Plasm's great too. Igor and the Lunatics, 1985 trauma movie. I don't remember loving this movie, but hey, here I am, willing to give Igor and the Lunatics another chance. Great cover art. Love that cover art. You know, it's so weird. Igor and the Lunatics is one I never rented. I don't know if my video store had it. Then we got Drop Zone here. This is a fun action movie. Gary Busey, Wesley Snipes, had a lot of people in here. I remember Mickey Jones was in here. I'm sure there's tons of people in here. I'm completely forgetting. It's been so long since I watched this one. Michael Jeter, yeah. Parachute horror movie. This is one of the cinematography, and we got a little parachute guy. I don't know why I bought this. It's kind of the dumb shit I buy when it says it with it. But Last Tango in Paris, 4K here. Marlon Brando, of course. Nice deluxe edition. So yeah, that is the update, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Back to the video. Alright, the sound's probably pretty rough. Sorry, but this is my Patreon drawing. I forgot to draw the names out. 5 names for my patrons, of course, to see what's coming up. Let's see what we got. First up, Tyler Tadeo. Your name, Shinkai. Another one here, David Luton, Godfather. Okay, been years. Tana Cameron, 1982, nominated for an Oscar. Good timing. Sorry about that. Clearing my throat. Sophie Bongos, Walker, 1987. I think that is the Ed Harris film. And final, T-Dog. Who the fuck is T-Dog? That must be Tyler. Just me putting him in there like an idiot. The Gunfighter, director Henry King. So there we go. Some good titles there. Yeah, let's get out of here. All right, guys. Thank you very much for watching. And as always, have a good one.